Hey guys, I've got something really cool to show you. Recently I've made a discovery and I'm going to show you something. It's a totally unique sort of perspective, and it's very cool. So I was thinking about the blues. And I was thinking about the old blues, you know, like the Robert Johnson, and you know, all the mystery and you know that surrounds that. The idea of Robert Johnson goes down to the crossroads, he makes a deal with the devil, he sells his soul to the devil, you know, in exchange for the knowledge of the blues. You know, we've all heard that story. So that's my start. I was thinking about that. So what if there is a crossroads? I don't mean just like two roads down in Mississippi, you know, a crossroads, but like a musical crossroads. I mean, think of it like you're a person, you're standing next to a crossroads. There are four directions you can go by. You can leave any one of four directions, and also there's four directions that pull you back into this crossroads, this point. So, do we see anything like this musically? Do we see this in music at all? I think we do. There's an amazing jazz guitar player. His name's Pat Martino. Now, I'm not a jazz guy, but Pat's got a very, very unique approach to his music. He works from basically two different chords. These are his start points. The first chord that he uses is an augmented chord. This is not the chord we need, because it's augmented chord is just a root, a major third and a sharp 5. It's just three, you know, it's a triangle. We need 4 points, which brings us to Pat Martino's second chord that he uses, which is the diminished chord. The diminished chord is a root, a minor third, a flat 5 and a double flat 7. It's 4 points. This is our chord. I do believe that this is the start point. This is the crossroads. This is where we're gonna, you know, let's see where we go with this.
Hey guys, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but we've got the circle of fifths here, and what it is C at the top, G, D, A, E, B, F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp and E sharp, which brings you to the top. Obviously these are all fifths. C to G is a fifth, G to D is a fifth, D to A, etc, etc. So they're all fifths. That makes the circle of fifths or the cycle of fifths. And this diamond here inside represents the diminished chord. C is the root, E flat is the minor third, G flat is the flat 5, and B double flat is the double flat 7. So that's your diminished chord right there. Secondly, all of these intervals are minor third intervals. So C to E flat is a minor third, E flat to G flat is a minor third interval, and G flat to B double flat is a minor third interval. So B double flat A to C is a minor third interval. So they're all minor third intervals. Now, interestingly, we've got 4 points on this chord. So 4 divided into 12, because there's 12 points around the clock face, is 3. And you'll see when we put this on the guitar, we move 3 frets, which is a minor third interval, and this chord will keep repeating itself. So I want you to think of this as like a clock face. Like we've got all these, you know, there's 12 points around the clock, you know, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, etc. But there's also 12 notes around here in the cycle of fifths. So there's similarities here. So there's a clock face. So C is at 12 o'clock, E flat is at 9 o'clock, G flat is at 6 o'clock, and B double flat is at 3 o'clock. Similarly, we can think of this as a compass, and that's north, south, east and west. This was the idea that I had, why I think the diminished chord is it's a gateway chord. That's Pat Martino's idea, but I think this could be the gateway chord for that reason, because it lines up with the clock face and also with the compass.
Okay, so here's the challenge then. Using our diminished chord, the gateway chord, as our crossroads, a start point, will we be able to navigate from there, and will we find the blues, and can we do it without selling our soul to the devil?
Okay, so let's put this chord on the neck then. So the note C is on the 8th fret on the 1st string. On the same fret, the 8th fret on the 3rd string, we've got E flat. On the fret below, the 7th fret on the B string, or the 2nd string, we've got G flat. And on the same fret, the 7th fret on the 4th string, we've got B double flat. So C, E flat, G flat, B double flat, and that is our diminished chord, C diminished. This chord, if you just move it up 3 frets, which is a minor third interval, you'll get, this is C diminished, we get E flat diminished, up 3 more frets, another minor third is G flat, 3 more frets takes us up to B double flat, and 3 more frets to bring us back to C again. I'll come back to this, but I want to show you the second thing that is really interesting, and this is the Pat Martino thing. If you take any one of these notes and you lower it by a semitone or a half step, you will get a dominant 7 chord. So let's do that. B double flat, we're going to lower that 1 note to A flat, and we get A flat 7. There's a diminished, there's a 7. Back to the diminished. We're going to flatten the E flat. We're going to take that down a semitone, and we get this D7. There's the diminished. There's a 7. The next one, if we take the G flat down 1 semitone or a half step, we get F7. And finally, if we take the C down to C flat, we get C flat 7. Okay, so what's the relationship between these dominant 7 chords? We've got F7, we've got A flat 7, we've got D7 and C flat 7. Well, they just like the idea with the diminished chord, every minor third, we get the same thing. We got F7, A flat 7, C flat 7, and D7. They're all minor thirds apart. So that's one thing. There's a couple of relationships with this. There's a second relationship between these 4 dominant 7 chords as well. If we have A flat 7 and D7, D7 is a tritone of A flat, and similarly, if we've got C flat 7, then F7 is a tritone of the C flat 7. Okay, so you're probably asking what a tritone is. I'm sure most of you know, but a tritone, basically, if you've got a root note and then you've got the octave, the tritone sits right in the middle. In fact, if you think about, look at this ruler, and think about the root note being there, the octave being there, the tritone is a thing right in the centre that keeps the balance, and this is why people say that it's like a very unbalanced sort of like sound, and it is to a certain extent, but it's because it's right in the middle of the octave. Let's show you that. Let's do it on here. C is the root. There's your octave. That's the note right in the middle of the 2. Now, if we're taking it from the major scale, you just go up to your 4 and you sharpen that. And that's the sharp 4, which is a tritone. If you're coming down, you get to the 5th and you flatten the 5th. So coming down it's a flat 5, going up it's a sharp 4, but that's a tritone. Okay, so I want to get back to how A flat 7 to D7, which is the tritone that we just spoke about. A tritone, there's a thing called tritone substitution, but I'm going to kind of like expand a little bit on how these 4 chords, another way that they all relate to each other. So we know the formula for a dominant 7 chord is a root, a major third, a 5th, and a flat 7. So we've got 4 notes out of a possible 7-note scale. We also know that each of those 4 chords came from C diminished by lowering a note. So therefore we've now got 5 notes out of the scale because we've got a root, a flat 2, a major third, a 5th and a flat 7. So if we now using the A flat 7 chord, think about playing the notes from D7, the chord D7 at the same time. Now we've got a 6-note scale because we've obviously got the sharp 4. The other ones overlap. There's lots of overlaps here. We don't have a 6th note yet, the major 6, but if you think about it, F7 is another chord, and the note F is the major 6 in A flat. So now we've got our scale, we've got a 7-note scale, and that scale is a 1, a flat 2, a major 3rd, a sharp 4, a 5, a major 6, and a flat 7. Now here's the interesting part. That formula that I just gave you is the same when you play over D7. You got D, the flat 2, major 3rd, sharp 4, 5, major 6 and a flat 7. Same as on the A flat 7. Noodling off a little bit there, but you get the picture, and it's the same on F7 and C flat 7. They all share that same formula. The formula for the scale is the root, the flat 2, major 3rd, sharp 4, the 5th, the major 6 and the flat 7, and that applies to all 4 of those dominant 7 chords. So what's interesting too is if you used A flat 7 and then you lay over D7, F7 and C flat 7, all of those notes, you would arrive at the half-tone, whole-tone scale, which we know is a great favourite of Robben Ford, who's a brilliant blues guitar player, amazing. And also the other guy that likes that is Mike Stern. Both those guys are great blues players, very influenced by jazz, and both plays with Miles Davis. So, I don't know. Although this is just a very quick start point, we have gone from the C diminished chord. We've found 4 dominant 7 chords, which is like the Pat Martino thing. But what I've done with that is like actually seen how these chords interact together and give us a scale, which is a 1, flat 2, major 3rd, sharp 4, 5, major 6 and a flat 7. And all of those, you can basically play across all of those chords with that scale. It's the same thing. And when you use all of those chords together in combination, notes that you get from that is the half-tone, whole-tone scale, which is totally used in blues. It's the outside scale that everyone uses, you know, from Alan Holdsworth right through to, you know, like I just said, Mike Stern, Robben Ford, it's the outside sort of sound. A lot of that comes from that scale. So although this is just a start point, I feel that it's a good start, that, you know, we haven't completely found blues yet, and I've still got loads of stuff to show you, but that's an interesting thing to think about. Diminished chord into 4 dominant 7 chords gives you these 4 scales. It's all the same formula, but each one of them has that scale. And if you put all 4 chords together, you get the half-tone, whole-tone scale. So you can see that it is like travelling through music. We started at one point, we did some things, we travelled in 4 different directions, and then collectively, when we brought all those back together, we got the half-tone, whole-tone scale. So another way of getting to the half-tone, whole-tone scale is by basically the diminished arpeggio, 1, flat 3, flat 5, double flat 7, and then play the whole thing a semitone higher, exactly the same thing. And that will give you the half-tone, whole-tone scale. So basically, the half-tone, whole-tone scale can be arrived at from 2, it's usually coming from chords, it's coming, not scales, but chords. 2 chords, in this case, 2 diminished chords, a semitone apart, chromatic, you know, one after the other. Or, like I pointed out, if we come from a diminished chord and then separate off into 4 dominant 7 chords, the overlap of those 4 dominant 7 chords will also get us to this position. So you can see my feeling with all of this is like travelling through things. I mean, people tell you that they'll just drop down and say block. When you're on the 5th chord in a blues, bomb, you can use the half tone, whole tone scale. That's true. But I always feel that these things are just dropped in place. And for me, how does it all link? But I figured out a lot of stuff of how it does all link up in some pretty interesting ways. So anyway, let's recap. We started off at the Crossroads with, you know, Robert Johnson, the devil, the whole thing. Pat Martino, the idea of the 2 gateway chords, which are coming from the cycle of fifths. The first one being the augmented chord, which is a triangle, and the second one, as you saw, is a diamond, which is the diminished chord. So we got that you know, the gateway chords. We got to our diminished chord. We flattened each one of those notes individually and got 4 dominant 7 chords. We then overlapped those chords and extracted a scale, which was 1, flat 2, major 3rd, sharp 4, 5, major 6, and flat 7 on all 4 of them. And when you put all 4 of those chords together, we got the half tone, whole tone scale. And another way of getting the half tone, whole tone scale is by using 2 diminished chords, arpeggios, basically a semitone apart. It'll give you the same thing. People have asked questions. It's usually the same questions. Where does the C diminished chord come from? Why does it have a double flat 7? What is a double flat 7? Why is it B double flat? Why, you know, all of those things can, you know, they're basically all the same question, just looking at it different ways. I can answer that, no problem. I'll do that in part 2, and I'll show you some things that that I think you'll be quite surprised about. So anyway, let's get this one out, see what the response is, and then I'll knock the next one out and blow your mind. Okay, the final thing. These videos are not about how crazy my hair is. It's not about how bad my video editing, shooting skills or guitar playing is. It's about trying to show you some different ways of looking at music and travelling through it, giving you some great ideas that you will be able to create some really interesting new music. That's what it's about.